Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Stephen Moffat. A name that can inspire a range of emotions from fear to hatred to love and respect. Born in Scotland in 1961, just 2 years and 5 days before Doctor Who would ultimately begin airing, Stephen Moffat would grow up a huge fan of the sci-fi show, and after a brief stint as a teacher, he would begin writing for television himself, eventually being invited to write for Doctor Who's 2005 revival series. What followed was a 12-year involvement with the show, with half of that being the full-blown showrunner of the series. It's safe to say Moffat's time in charge was hugely controversial and polarising, with some fans absolutely loving his work and others considering him the man who killed Doctor Who, pulling all sorts of stunts and writing all sorts of wild narratives. He definitely made his mark on the show. But all the way back in 2008, Moffat did something massive with ramifications for years and years to come. Beware spoilers for these stories and other pieces of media, because this is the biggest lie Stephen Moffat ever told.
Hi, I'm Barry Scott.
And just make a giant screen.
I want some crusher.
Lifted high for Manchester United.
I'll see you again, mister.
The year is 2007. Doctor Who Series 3 has recently ended and continued the show's runaway success and huge popularity, with Stephen Moffat's Blink a particular highlight. Moffat sits there, fingers on his keyboard as he ponders the upcoming Series 4 episode, A River Song Ending, a jokey title based around the rude acronym it creates. However, as the episode developed further and Moffat accepted Russell T Davies' offer of becoming new showrunner, the writer created the character of River Song, paying tribute to that working title and fleshing her out as a figure from his upcoming era, whom the Doctor meets out of order. The resulting two-parter, Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, would become another Moffat banger in the Davies era, with River Song becoming a particularly popular character. The direction Moffat took with River was to kill her off in her first appearance, to further establish that gimmick of her meeting the Doctor out of sync. But being Moffat, he wrote in a technicality to preserve River, allowing her to live happily ever after in a simulated computer world. But this was Moffat's lie, intentional or not, because this woman is not River Song. Okay, that might have sounded a bit extreme, but let me elaborate. In the 20th century, as technology developed and sci-fi mixed with philosophy, a few writers like Stanislav Lem explored the idea of identity and consciousness. One such writer was Derek Parfit, whose 1984 book Reasons and Persons introduces the teletransportation paradox. Parfit's theory suggests the idea of a teletransporter, something that puts you to sleep, records every aspect of your body's composition and all your brainwaves before breaking you down into atoms and relaying everything to Mars at the speed of light. Here your body is recreated one-to-one, to the extent all the atoms are in the exact same place. Parfit therefore poses the question of whether this Mars-based you is the same you having been transported, or if you were killed and an exact replica was made of you on Mars. The kicker is, of course, that this replica would remember entering the teletransporter and have absolutely no idea they are a replica only recently created. They would believe they have been transported instead of replacing the original person. Parfit goes on to suggest that this hypothetical teletransporter is then upgraded and changed so that it doesn't kill the person who enters it, instead making infinite replicas who can all remember entering it in the first place. This brings up a lot of questions about identity and consciousness, similar to the idea of the ship of Theseus, which was changed, all the materials were changed over the years, and at the end, can you say it's the exact same ship as before? If all of these replicas have every memory, the exact same molecular composition, even the exact same atoms in the same places, does that make them the same as the original? And this is what serves as the centerpiece of the game Soma.
What did you think would happen?
That you were gonna take my mind and put it into another body, like a brain transplant.
I'm sorry, it wouldn't work that way.
This game is all about a man named Simon going for a brain scan in 2015, only to suddenly wake up in an abandoned underwater geothermal power center after the entire planet was seemingly wiped out by a comet strike in the year 2103. As Simon explores the sprawling complex, it turns out that he is the brain scan uploaded into a corpse of an employee. To cut a long, brilliant story short, Simon works with Catherine, who is also an employee's brain scan downloaded into a robot, to launch the Ark, a black box of sorts where all the personnel have been preserved in a simulated world. Throughout the game, Simon and the player themselves are led to believe that Simon will be transported over to the Ark to survive in space alongside Catherine and all those other brain scans as they live in their simulated world, digitally preserving humanity. After all, earlier in the game, Simon received a new body capable of surviving on the ocean floor, with his consciousness being copied into it. Since you're playing as this new Simon, the ramifications of this change aren't immediately obvious, but the truth is, this is now the third distinctive Simon you play as. The previous two all had their own sense of identity and consciousness, continuing to exist after the player stopped controlling them, proving that this isn't a transference of consciousness, it's a duplication. This point is revealed in a really chilling way at the end of the game when you finally launch the Ark with Catherine and Simon uploaded at the last second, only for them to also remain at the bottom of the ocean. Unlike the previous times, the player remains as Simon now, who sits there not understanding the fact he was, duplicated, not transported.
When you read this, I will have entered the Ark. That's not how it works. If there's a digital copy of you, that's not you. That's a copy.
Consider a digital file. It sits there on your computer happily minding its own business, but then you need to take it somewhere, be that for your job, to give to a friend, or anything else along those lines. You put in a USB stick, drag the file over, eject the USB, walk over to the other computer and put the file on that second computer. Yes, you have by definition transferred the file to a new computer, but in doing so you have created two new copies, meaning there are now 3 instances of that file all existing on their own. The file stays on your first computer, but also stays on your USB stick, and the second computer simply copied it over. That's basically what Simon experiences during the events of Soma. The Simon stuck at the bottom of the ocean is the USB stick version of the file.
We left those losers downstairs.
His brain scan made it from a lab in 2015 to the space Ark in 2104. Sure, when Simon wakes up on the Ark, he has all the memories of that journey, believing he was transported the whole way, retaining that recollection of the events. But he is simply the most recent copy of Simon, the one copied over to that other computer, the final destination. Much like the file, there remains 3 previous Simons who each served their part.
Catherine, why was he still talking?
That's how it works, you know that.
What do you mean?
You know it's not magic. You were copied. The sleeping Simon in the seat was copied.
Simon Jarrett died of his existing brain injuries a month after his experimental brain scan. Simon 2.0 either dies at his duplicate's hands or is left locked in a room pursued by a monster. Simon 3.0, as we know, remains trapped in the depths of the ocean, while Simon 4.0 is the one who gets to live happily ever after in the Ark without ever having actually physically existed at all. So what does that mean for River Song? Well, she went through a very similar process to Simon. River 1.0 is born at Demon's Run, goes on all her adventures with the Doctor, a billion Big Finish stories, you get the gist. She then ends up at the library, where she meets the 10th Doctor who doesn't recognise her, ultimately sacrificing herself to save everyone stored in the library. It's a big emotional moment, River giving her life for a man who doesn't even know her yet. Of course, the Doctor works out a way to upload her consciousness into the library's computer, and River Song lives happily ever after, declaring that everybody lives. Except this is a lie. This woman is not River Song. She may have all the same memories, the same body, the same everything, but she is simply a copy, a digitized version of the real woman who genuinely, permanently died. Moffat's grand declaration of everyone surviving is nothing more than a technicality, a romantic deception based around happy endings. Consider the Soma example. Simon and the crew of the Pathos 2 outpost live on in the Ark, but their brain scans, duplicates of the real dead crew, just like River and her crew being dead in reality. Remember, River 1.0 is a computer file, her sonic screwdriver is like a USB stick, and the library computer is the second destination. 2 River Songs die just so that River 3.0 can survive, believing she went right from her death to this simulated world inside the library. Duplication, not transference. River's fate is a prime example of the teletransportation paradox. River may gain digital immortality, but the original River Song can never actually experience that. It's the same way none of us can ever experience immortality on a digital plane, because we physically don't exist as digital entities, it's impossible. River Song 1.0 is a living, breathing human being. River Song 3.0 is a bunch of very complicated computer code made up of ones and zeros. Therefore, contrary to the episode's bold belief, not everybody lives. But that being said, what does that mean for the rest of the people in the library, including Donna Noble, who was also uploaded to the computer during a botched transmat to the TARDIS? By all known laws of the universe, you cannot convert a carbon-based lifeform into a digital synthetic being, because they are biologically incompatible. Our universe and the digital plane are like two different realities with different capabilities, laws, and rules. So how can Donna seemingly be teleported into a computer before later being restored to her human self? Well, in the year 5150, I wouldn't be surprised if they have the ability to create perfect human replicates down to the very same atoms arranged in the exact same order as before. Sound familiar? And since we can see that this digitizing process causes Donna a lot of pain, we can assume she died in the process of being saved to the library computer, with her digital consciousness having absolutely no idea. Because again, this is a prime case of the teletransportation paradox, simply adjusted for the concept of mind uploading. Donna's mind is simply scanned and duplicated to be placed inside this digital world. So what happened to her physical body? It's not like the Matrix on Gallifrey where you can plug yourself in and essentially pilot a digital version of yourself. The body actually ceases to exist and then gets restored. So what happened during that time? The same question goes for poor Charlotte Lux, the young girl at the core of the library who was dying and had her consciousness uploaded to the computer, making her the main command node. The episode acts as though this saved her life, but the unspoken reality is that she was just like Simon, a brain scanned and duplicated with the original person dying, while their mind lives on under the belief that they were simply transferred over. The two-parter even reminds us constantly throughout, 422 saved, no survivors. The story acts as if the computer saved the actual physical people, with the ending restoring them to life, but the only thing being restored are mental backups, files downloaded into these recreated bodies and continuing their lives their original owners lost during that digitizing process. From every episode after this one, we're not watching Donna Noble travel with the Doctor, we're watching Donna Noble 2.0. She's essentially the same Donna down to the same molecular structure, but she's not the same one. And since we're on the topic of digital backups, what about Moffat's acclaimed masterpiece Heaven Sent? This incredible single-actor piece places the 12th Doctor in a bespoke torture chamber tailored specifically for him, with the aim of extracting his knowledge of the hybrid prophecy. We follow him as he explores the mystery of this moving castle and the terrifying creature within it. It's a slow-burn contemplative narrative that culminates in the fantastic reveal of the Doctor having been trapped in a cycle for at least 7,000 years before the episode even began, with this 12th Doctor being one of many, you guessed it, copies of the original, who was transported at the end of Face the Raven. The Doctor himself even calls this teleporter a fancy 3D printer, and says there's still a copy of him in the hard drive, meaning the Doctor essentially ceases to exist between Face the Raven and Heaven Sent. The teleporter scans his brain, copies it, and that copy is downloaded into a physical body over and over again for like 2 billion years, before he finally breaks free at the end. Since this is the same copy being reset, this means there's only one version of the Doctor that goes through all this. It's theoretically impossible for him to actually remember all of these cycles because he's being restored to the same original state. Therefore, when the Doctor finally leaves, he's only Doctor 2.0. But yeah, no wait, hang on a second, that also obviously means he's not Doctor 1.0. The Doctor we follow before Heaven Sent and the Doctor we follow after Heaven Sent are not the same person if you apply the theory of the teletransportation paradox. To put it in his most blunt terms, the Doctor is dead, which is a bombshell conclusion I guarantee none of you ever expected at the beginning of this video. Hey, Wholmes Sauce, Harbo here. How do you know you're you? Let's say you're walking down the street, minding your own business, when you're stopped by someone. You look up and you're looking at yourself. They're the same height, the same weight, they have the exact same shade of eye colour. Every single detail is identical, down to the exact placement of hair follicles and freckles. You would be looking at a complete copy of yourself. And yet, they claim that you're the copy. Well, that's ridiculous, you'd say. You have years of memories, growing up, going to school, playing outside, having a crush. All these memories are the many things you've seen and experienced throughout your life. You know what makes you, you. But so does your copy. They grew up the same way, they went to the same school, they had the same crush. Everything that makes you, you, also makes them, you. Memories can be manipulated and changed under the right circumstances. So what's to say that they can't be added and implanted too? For all you know, your existence only started last week, and everything before was just created to give you the illusion of being real. You wouldn't know otherwise, but you still feel life, you're still a living being with a consciousness. Does it really matter if the Doctor and Donna come out of these episodes as technically different people? Does it matter if Simon Jarrett exists across multiple different instances? Their identities are still valid and they still have a right to exist and a right to believe in their memories and experiences, even if they do only live on as replacements for people who already existed beforehand. I started this video telling you that this whole situation was Stephen Moffat's biggest lie in his Doctor Who tenure. Obviously that was a bit of hyperbole given the whole arc of Series 6 being based on an entire lie itself, but I do genuinely believe that the whole optimistic end of Forest of the Dead is based on a complete fabrication, because as I said, everybody didn't live. River and her crew died very definitively, most of them ended up as literal skeletons. It was simply a collection of their reconstructed digital consciousnesses that lived on under the false belief that they somehow continued their existence seamlessly. They're fundamentally different people, nothing more than digital scans of real people, although I don't think Moffat was really aware of such an implication when writing the story. The two-parter genuinely seems to operate under the sincere assumption that there is some kind of complete one-to-one transference from reality to virtual reality, as if it's something being transported from one physical location to another. It's only when you explore the concept and the philosophical theories surrounding mind uploading and the teletransportation paradox that you can see such a belief is flawed and impossible. And yes, sure, Doctor Who isn't exactly a bastion of logic and science. I mean, the show is literally about a police box time machine, but it's pretty eye-opening when you really explore the deeper ramifications of this plot point in the show. I don't know if Moffat meant to lie or not, he probably didn't, let's be real, but it's my firm belief that River Song's happy ending remains the biggest lie Stephen Moffat ever told in Doctor Who. And as always, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. And a special thank you to my Bantam level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Platinum level patrons Maximilian Foreman and Nick Games, and all my Gold level patrons Boots, Calvin, Daniel Shillito, Franz Horn aka Line Vortex, Herna Verzog, Robert Hock, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.